I'm Scott Bowden. I'm the Deputy Ag Commissioner for Sutter County. I'm in charge of the pesticide use enforcement for Sutter. And, well, to state the obvious, because of COVID and where we're at right now, we're having these Zoom meetings. So usually you'd see one or two other counties in all of these meetings that we've had, not just the UC meetings, but all the rice meetings. We've kind of condensed it up this year. I'm going to try to present topics for all of the surrounding counties, although I highly suggest if you have questions, please contact your local county ag commissioner's office. They will have the specifics for the region where you're farming. I will try to cover as much as I can in the amount of time that I have. Where am I? All of the counties have their rice permit conditions on their websites. I have their websites listed here. I know these are kind of hard to see. The best thing to do is just type in, say, Sacramento County Ag Commissioner's Office, and you'll find their website and their permit conditions will be listed there. Their phone numbers are listed on this page. I will repeat this page at the end of my presentation as well. With that, we'll kind of go over quickly some of the main permit conditions right now. We'll start off with thiobincarb products. That includes Bolero, Abolish, League MVP, and there is a new generic this year, Thio Ultramax from Willowwood. Make sure you attend the stewardship training. I think Roberta just sent out, CRC just sent out an email, I think today. The meeting will be next week live, and it sounds like it's going to be recorded. So look for that email. Make sure you attend that stewardship training for all thiobincarb products. They require at least a 24-hour notice of intent, although you will notice that some counties, Colusa and Glenn, have a 48-hour notice of intent prior to application. And liquid formulations of thiobincarb products in Colusa and Glenn County, they can't be applied by air north of Highway 20 and west of the Sacramento River. That was a change in 2017. So nothing really new there. Just a reminder that north of 20, west of the river in Colusa and Glenn can't apply by air for Abolish. So all of these products have water hold requirements, including the new Thio Ultramax. Remember that we need a notice of application 24 hours after the application. You need to notify our office that the Bolero, League, or Thio Ultramax has been applied. If it's Abolish, you need to know when that water hits the last check. That way the field is completely flooded, and that's when the water hold requirements start for the liquid formulation for Abolish. We will be inspecting the drain boxes for compliance. We do that every year. We're out 7 days a week. All of the counties are out 7 days a week checking for these applications. So what are we looking for in a water hold? We don't want to see pulled boards, early releases, leaking boards, seepage through the levees. Basically, if the water is leaving your field, leaving your control, we can take and we will take an enforcement action. And all of the counties, again, are set at $1,000 per violation. We don't want to see that. We're trying to get that information out now. This is, again, nothing new. Just watch your water, make sure it's not leaving your field, leaving your control. Obviously, there are some single grower systems. Talk to your local ag commissioner. Single grower systems will have may have a reduced water hold requirement. But you will need to get those certified with your ag commissioner prior to use. Once you start to release the water, remember that the drainage from the box can't exceed 2 inches of water over that drain box for 7 days after the water hold. So 30-day water hold for Bolero, League MVP, Thio Ultramax. After that 30 days, you can let 2 inches of water over the top go for 7 days. Then it's unregulated at that point. Those are in the permit conditions all of thiobencarb products, and they've been in there for quite a while. Moving on to propanol. Let's see if I can see if there's any. Perfect, no questions. I will have time for questions at the end, and then we have, I think I have 3 questions for CE hours as well at the end. So propanol conditions, that's STAM, Super WHAM, rice, edge. Remember that there's no emulsifiable formulations in California. There's limited aerial applications. This again is where you're going to want to look at your conditions for your fields, for your growers' fields. Talk to your ag commissioner for the local area. Some counties allow flying everywhere. Some have limited areas. Check. What is required is there's no more than 720 acres may be treated by aircraft within each county per day. Check with if you're in a county where they have these, where you have a lot of aerial applications, you know where you're at, you know the routine of how to call, when to get on the lottery system for that. So remember that it's ground only for propanol within 4 miles of prunes. And again, we have a 24 to 48 hour notice of intent. That varies by counties, and it probably varies by how close you are to prunes. So keep an eye on that. Make sure your applicators are maintaining a written log for air temperature, wind speed, and wind direction. That's always going to be the case. Some more conditions for propanol and these kind of dive into some of the specifics. A lot of this is with Yuba County. Again, talk to the bios, talk to the deputy over in Yuba County. They have paperwork for different zones there. They have a zone 1, 2, and 3, and that's going to which zone you're in is going to determine how you can apply that propanol. So check. If you're in Yuba County, make sure you check. If you're in Butte County or Colusa County, make sure you check with them too. Yolo County is the same. A few years ago, we switched. Most of the counties have made regiment and clincher kind of a restricted material within each county. We went from calling it regiment permit conditions to, I get to try to say this now, bispirabac sodium, which is regiment, and the new Rose 80, which I guess isn't that new anymore. Again, there are limited aerial applications for most counties. Most of the counties have maps that they will be publishing. I know Sutter County will be publishing our map here probably right before, really right before seeding starts. I want to make sure we get all of our rice permits in before I make current maps. And I'm sure the other counties are in the same way. We will be publishing maps. They're typically on our websites, our website, Butte County's. Just check. This bispirabac sodium requires a 24-hour notice of intent, and it has wind restrictions. Typically, it's 2 miles from non-bearing crops. In some counties, in Sutter, would be in Butte and Colusa. In Sutter County, we have 1 mile from walnuts, and Placer County. Placer, Sutter, and Yuba is 1 mile from walnut orchards. So there is some variation. So again, you want to check with your county, individual county permit conditions. Clincher and Rebel EX, that's Cyhalofop is the active ingredient in that. There is a mandatory stewardship training. They just happened this week and last week. I'm not sure. My guess is there will be some sort of way to watch that afterwards. If you're applying by ground, make sure you attend that mandatory stewardship training. Sutter and Placer County are ground only for Cyhalofop. Butte, Colusa, Yolo, Yuba, they all have defined aerial zones. Again, check with your counties. There's approved adjuvants, and again, there's a 28 to 48 hour notice of intent, and that varies by county. Intrepid 2F. While there are not necessarily permit conditions for Intrepid 2F, there are some rules involving Intrepid 2F with the application of rice. So Intrepid 2F is a FIFRA Section 18 emergency exemption for the use of Intrepid 2F on rice to control armyworms. That is product specific. It's not active ingredient. There are lots of active ingredient. There are lots of products with the same active ingredient as Intrepid. For rice to control armyworms, it has to be Intrepid 2F. We have to have a notice of intent for that. And it's only good for a very specific amount of time. Last year, the Section 18 was from April 20th to October 4th. I'm not sure when it's going to be issued this year, but there will be a specific time. It does require notice of intent, and it has to be the exact product on the Section 18. One of the things to always remind everybody is to check the labels. So while there are permit conditions for all of these products, remember that each label has could potentially have specific buffer zones, such as these. They also have label hold requirements that are in addition, that are beyond, that are not just thiobencarb products. Oh, question popped up. Let's see, I will answer that question at the very end of my presentation. Well, apparently I have to close that. This is how often I use Zoom meetings. Sorry about that. So what are we looking for when county biologists go out and do inspections? Again, we're looking for water hold requirements for the thiobencarb products, including the new Willowwood Thio Ultramax. We're looking for damage to sensitive crops, peaches, prunes, and walnuts. They all have specific buffer zones, both permit conditions and on the label. And then we actually look for Roundup applications around boxes and berms. Those are required to be reported. If you have employees out there, there could be additional personal protection equipment because they're typically hand applications. So pay attention to that. Read the label. What we're looking for. So damage, what we don't want to see, I guess, is damage from regiment, very indicative. More damage from regiment. Clincher damage on peaches. And damage from shark on prunes. So we get calls. If we get a complaint call from a neighboring orchard, we're required to go out and do an investigation and to see what happened. These are the kinds of examples that we look for. Hopefully we don't see those this year or from anybody, but that's what we're looking for. That's what we don't want to see. So some updates. There really hasn't been any worker health and safety updates since 2017. But if you have employees that are handling pesticides, they have to have all the personal protection equipment on the label. There are regulatory required personal protection equipment as well for employees. And then this is a decontamination facility. So every employee, if you have employees handling, they have to have a decontamination facility. And I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. One, it is a few years old, but it's one of the bigger changes we've had in the past few years. And I believe they're looking at maybe reopening this code section. So pay attention to this. This is, if you have employees, they need to have soap, water, and towels. That's always been the case. The water is the big issue. If they're handling pesticides, you need to have 3 gallons of water per employee at the beginning of each day. And that's for regular decontamination. That doesn't count for eye wash. They also need single-use towels, a pint of eye wash at immediate use if they're the applicator, and a change of coveralls if it's a warning or danger product. Remember, this decontamination facility has to be at the mixed load site and no more than a quarter mile away from the handlers. Eye wash, emergency eye flush. This was the other big change from 17. It has to have running water at a rate of 0.4 gallons per minute for at least 15 minutes, or they kind of rough that out to at least 6 gallons of water in containers suitable for providing gentle eye flush for 15 minutes. There's a lot of water that's required at a decontamination facility if you have employees. If you have questions on if what you have is appropriate, call your local ag commissioner. We'd love to go out and look at the facilities, before you have guys out there. We would rather see it beforehand, so we're not documenting a non-compliance. We can say, hey, this isn't quite right. Why don't you fix this before the guys go out and start spraying? Rather see that happen. What we also don't want to see at mixed load sites is something like this, where we have just waste water with, in this case, it looks like clincher. I didn't take this picture, but it's just all over the ground. So we need to make sure that we have a clean site as well. Pesticide use reports, remember that they are due at the 10th of the month following the day of application. It's ultimately your job as the grower, as the applicator, to submit those use reports. Even if your PCA typically does that for you, responsibility falls back on you. I throw in pesticide use near schools because, well, this has been an odd year for schools, obviously, for those of us with kids. But there are some schools that are open. There are some schools that have limited children at them, and rice tends to bleed in to that very last bit of school. So remember, there's a quarter mile from all school sites, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. No aerial applications. So just keep an eye on that if your PCO, if your aerial applicator is going to fly and you've got rice right next to a school. So again, and I'm going to bring this up, I did see that question. The Bolero and clincher certs are, make sure those come into our office. If you submit a notice of intent for one of these products, we will be calling you if it's not on hand. If you have a professional applicator doing the application for clincher, at least, you do not have to have that. The applicator has to have the certificate for clincher. For Bolero, we want who's ever in charge of the water. They need to have that mandatory Bolero certificate. For clincher, it is the applicator. And again, I said I'd have this up for a few minutes. Just see if I miss. Yeah. So this is a list of all of the surrounding rice counties, their websites and phone numbers. And let's see, I had that one question: is clincher mandatory stewardship training required for the grower if the application is made by a professional applicator? And again, it's the applicator, whether it's you or it's a professional applicator. All right, any other questions regarding laws and regs, permit conditions, anything like that?
If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. In the meantime, we might as well do your poll questions, if that's all right, Scott.
Absolutely, let's do those.
Great, so I'm gonna launch these. And if you don't mind reading them off for us, that would be great.
Okay, so abolish EC, a liquid formulation, can always be flown on north of Highway 20. True or false? Question number 2, pesticides that fall under the FIFRA Section 18 emergency exemption requirements, like Intrepid 2F on rice, require A, a restricted materials permit issued by the county, B, 24-hour notice of intent to apply, C, the exact product listed on the Section 18, D, all of the above. And then I have a third question. I can't. There. Employee decontamination sites for pesticide handlers at a production agricultural site must have how much potable water at the mixed load site? Sufficient water to allow for cleaning, 3 gallons of water per handler, or 1 pint of water per employee.
Thanks for reading those. So we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to kind of go through and take this quiz, and then we'll go over the correct answers. And again, if you need DPR credits, make sure you're paying attention to these polls, because these will be the questions that are asked of you on the final exam. I'm going to end this and share those results. So if you don't mind, Scott, going over the correct answers for each of these.
All right. Number 1 is false. In 2017, remember, there were new permit conditions that restricted the aerial application of liquid thiobencarb, abolish ADC in Colusa and Glenn counties north of Highway 20 and west of the Sacramento River. So number 1 is false. Number 2 is D, all of the above. You have to have a restricted materials permit. It has to be assigned specifically for the Section 18, in this case, Intrepid. We have to have a 24-hour notice of intent, and it has to be the exact product listed on the Section 18, whether that's Intrepid, whether that's whatever else has been issued as a Section 18. But D is the correct answer, all of the above. And number 3 is, again, B, 3 gallons of water per handler at the beginning of each day. That's a lot of water, depending on how many guys you got out there. So, but that is correct, B.
Okay.
Looks like the majority of everyone got it right.
Yeah, it does. Great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing now.
All right.